Hi, Dr. Whitford. It's Chad Clark. I hope you're doing well. It's a beautiful day here in southern Maine. It's sunny in the low 70s, and the beach is calling my name, so I'm getting my studies out of the way first. But today I'm going to be talking about compliance, cooperation, and support for and with the law. This is our reading for 2.1, which was my group. And when I was reading this article, it reminded me of something that Thomas Jefferson said in the Declaration of Independence when he said, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So that leads to what the article talks about is procedural justice and procedural fairness in the law. If people don't have what the article calls buy-in to the law that they're supposed to follow, they're not going to want to follow that, and they're actually probably going to revolt against that specific law. So there's a long list from the legislature coming up with the law to passing it to enforcing it, and then ruling on that law. Also, there's a lot of process that goes into having compliance with that law. So with that, I'll start with the PowerPoint. And so we have to start, I guess, with compliance definition, which is pretty much, this article says, is following laws and regulations voluntarily, which is what the goal should be of the criminal justice system. And when the legislators are creating the law, they should be looking to if it's fair, if people are going to comply with it, because if not, it's a useless law. The article talks about immediate compliance, which the goal is to find out really what, to get people to comply with the law even when the authorities aren't around. But the immediate compliance is, it's okay, well, if you don't do this, you're breaking the rules, you're going to get a fine, or you're going to get arrested, or what have you. So that would be immediate compliance. But again, the goal is to look beyond that of, okay, when I'm not here as the judge or the police officer, how do I get people to buy into this law? So I guess the measure of that would be if the people actually change their behavior when the law enforcement, or they've been, gone to court, and when the judge isn't around or the police aren't around, they're still following the law and what they're supposed to be doing. Because most people as the article says, will have the tendency to resist the law, and it even says that 20 to 22% of people actually won't follow the law even immediately when the police are there. So you're really looking for the long-term compliance, which is when the legal authorities are present, but long-term compliance is difficult because legal authorities are rarely ever continually present or able to be there with some sort of surveillance. So that's why you have to have that buy-in in the long-standing. And the reason that people comply with that is fear of punishment, fear of jail, fines, prison sentences. Those can be reasons for compliance. But again, back to, if people don't feel that procedural justice and fairness, they're not gonna buy into that. I have an example. I used to, when I stopped people in a car for speeding, I would introduce myself and I would just tell them the reason for the stop, and I would say, I just have a question for you. If someone was doing 50, 55 mile an hour by your house in a 30 or 35 mile an hour zone, would you be upset with that? And 99% of the time, people said, yes, absolutely. I wouldn't want people doing 50 by my house. And I'd say, okay, well, is it fair then to say that these people on this street don't want you doing 50 miles an hour by their house? And they said, absolutely. So to me, that's an example of, fairness. They understood why the law was there, and because they even thought it was too fast, but they don't mind doing it in front of somebody else's house. But when it's their house, they don't want it done. So if I could put them in the shoes of their neighbor, I felt like that was a win-win. They would think about it in the future when they're driving through their neighborhood. I don't want to do 50 in somebody else's neighborhood. So I guess that's a couple of, or an example of how you get people to buy in, or a fair reason for following the law. So the 3 desirable public behaviors to come out of following the law would be everyday compliance, voluntary cooperation of members of the public in their efforts to combat crime and community problems, and empowerment of the law by the public. So again, it all falls back to that fairness of procedure, and if people are consulted, whether they believe that that law is fair or they have a say in the law or the vote, or even the rendering of justice in that law, people actually will feel better about supporting that law. In the article, Mark Moore, who wrote an article in the FBI Law Enforcement Bulletin, it was called Legitimizing Criminal Justice Policies and Practices. He says the loss of popular legitimacy for the criminal justice system produces disastrous consequences for the system's performance. If citizens do not trust the system, they will not use it. So again, the general theme is what leads to people buying into that law and following that law is procedural fairness, procedural justice, where they think that they're a part of that. They also look at the judge's fairness or the officer's fairness. Was there quality in that decision making? Was there neutral decision making by the party? Was there clear evidence to attain those fair procedures, and what the outcome of those procedures? Was there enough evidence to qualify that? The quality of treatment by the officers to the public. I had a supervisor who thought there was an us versus them mentality, and it's not. It's we're all one. We're just, I'm just here because this is me protecting you as my neighbor and my family or my community against the evils of that are out in society. So you really have to show that to the public that you're on their side and you're there to protect them. You're not there to hurt them. And sometimes if people screw up, they have to pay the consequence, and that's what happens. But you really want them to understand what you're trying to do there. So the actions made by law enforcement and the justice system workers dictate how individuals will view that fairness, which I just was talking about, and dignity. The citizen's dignity is a major element of fairness, and this is shown in studies. According to the article, this is shown in many studies. So when a person is able to trust the justice system, they likely feel that they're getting a fair outcome. So with that, I'm at 8 minutes. That's the end of the PowerPoint, and I don't want to take up more of your time. So thank you, Dr. Whitford, and have a good day.